Three, two, one.
Oh, hey, buddy. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing great. I had an awesome weekend. Penn State wrestling was incredible.
So what happened? Last we talked, their star broke his leg and everything like that, and there was a concern that how they were going to finish up. What ended up happening there?
Well, watching these tournaments, it's like a soap opera, right?
Right.
You start watching people, and then what ends up happening at the national tournament, which is amazing, is that you have some kids that rise to the occasion, right? And all year they have 2 or 3 or 5 losses or whatever. And then all of a sudden everything clicks. They get enough rest. Their training comes together and they rise to the occasion. And all of a sudden they go out and tear up the world.
Yeah.
And then you got other guys that every year walk into the tournament ranked first or second or third, no losses, and they just fall apart.
Right.
And watching it happen, what's so remarkable, Penn State has this coach, and I went into it a little bit on Friday, I think, but this guy, he was undefeated, 4-time national champion, only guy who's ever done it in college, was an Olympic champion. Penn State woos him in for their head coaching position, and within 2 years takes them from being a school that consistently is ends the year 8 through 15 to be consistently number 1 in the country.
That's awesome.
And so they took second this year.
Hi, Jana. Oh, they took second still.
Well, so here's the kicker though. Saturday night was the finals, and in the finals they had 4 guys that made the finals. 3 of them were huge underdogs. 2 of them were huge underdogs. 1 was an underdog, and then the 4th one was not. All 4 of them won. All 4 winners. And that's the kind of performance that this coach gets.
Have you talked to Rob Neidlander about this? Because he was a wrestler, and I think that he wrestled for Penn State.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah. You know who I mean, right? Have I ever introduced you to Rob Neidlander?
I don't think so.
Dude, you got to meet him. He's he's out in the Carlisle area.
Okay.
Actually, one of the things that we're going to talk about today on the show, buying houses and doing some rehab for them and then splitting it, that's one of his favorite strategies. We should actually have him on to talk about that. But Rob is a super awesome guy, and his wife runs a realtor team. They've partnered up with Anna. Anna and him have partnered together. Actually met at my meetup, and have bought several multi-hundred unit complexes together. I'm 90% sure that I introduced them. I'm not.
You got to introduce me. That sounds awesome.
You guys just have the same passion for college level wrestling. So Rob is just a stand-up solid dude. I just really like him. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Build and Grow with Real Estate show. Josh Weidman and myself, we're both real estate investors, and we both not only build wealth through real estate, prepare bills with real estate, because I'm a realtor and Josh is a hard money lender, and we absolutely hard money bankers. We absolutely love real estate, both short-term and long-term, as a way of making money. Josh, as you can see, is finishing up a rehab there on his primary residence. Something that started out as an investment property became a primary residence for him. And as you've been paying attention to the show, we've been walking people through that. Today's content, what we're going to be talking to people about, is how you can get more offers accepted by making multiple offers, and kind of the pros and cons of that and why you want to do that. Because what you want to do is, if I'm looking to buy Josh's house, right, I could say, hey, Josh, it's a $100,000 house, sell it to me for $50,000, but maybe that's not what works for Josh. Right. So what I want to do is I want to have 2 at least, ideally 3, but maybe 4 different offers that I can present to Josh, and they all work for me. I'm just trying to figure out which one works for Josh.
Well, and one big thing that we're going to cover today is not just the different types of offers you can make, but how to put those numbers together so that they work for you no matter what. And so, you're giving the seller a couple different options, and if you do
either or close. There's a number of reasons that it works really well. But what you want to be careful of is Josh and I just want to say this right from the beginning. Josh and I are going to cover like 4 or 5 of these strategies. Pick 2 or 3 each time, and maybe use this one and this one, or maybe use this one and that one. But you never present all 5 to somebody, because that's going to give them information overload, and they're not going to be able to make a decision. So what you want to do is you want to present 2 or 3 of these options to people. And then if they reject both of them, then say, hey, maybe there's another way I could do this. I don't know. It might not even work for you, but what if we would blah, 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 and come in with one of the other 4 or 5 options that you have.
Did you ever go to the Cheesecake Factory?
Well, I've been there once.
Okay. If you've ever been to the Cheesecake Factory, this place, I love their food. I think it's phenomenal, but it takes me forever to order every single time. It looks like they're bringing out an old telephone book to give you
1,000 things on the menu.
It is unreal. And the truth is, every time I've eaten there, no matter what I've gotten, I've really, really liked it. So I don't know how the training for those cooks must be intense, right?
Sure.
But you don't want to be in that position when you're sitting down with a seller where it's like, I really like the shrimp scampi over here, but I'm also thinking about tacos.
Right.
Could you combine them for me? That's what you don't want, right? So a lot of what you're doing in setting this up when you're dealing with the seller is constructing offers that work for you for sure, but that would work for them is a real option for them to take advantage of. There's no sense in asking for seller financing if the seller owes more than you're willing to pay on the property. Right. It doesn't work. You got to make sure that you're listening and doing your homework to identify what their needs are and what they can do. Right? The second thing that you're doing here is you're finding multiple ways to solve the problem. Now, Judah put this really well. He said, look, you're going to make them a bunch of different offers, and we're going to hope that, we're going to show them 2 or 3 different ways. But as you're going through this, you're going to find that some of the ways that you want to make an offer don't make any sense. Right. In fact, I remember one of the first offers I ever made on a house was, I've always wanted to be an investor since I was 16, right? And I was selling windows and siding at the time and didn't have a ton of money. And so I'm in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, I'd love to invest in a piece of property. So I go to see this house, and I end up making an offer with, a $200 a month payment. They held all of the financing. Well, I didn't listen. It was a terrible offer. It was what they wanted dollar amount, but the financing didn't work because I didn't listen, and they just didn't call me back. You got to look for stuff that's relevant. And then once you have those things, those different offers that you want to make them, the next step really is the A/B close. This is my favorite close. Right? You want to tell people what that is, Judah?
Yeah, it's just either way it works for you. It's like, imagine if your kids said to you, Josh, imagine if your dad, if one of your kids came to you and says, hey, Dad, after dinner tonight, would you prefer that I have chocolate ice cream or mint chocolate chip? Which would work better for you?
Right.
See, we've already taken off the conversation whether we're having dessert and whether it's going to be ice cream. You know what I mean? Like, what we're deciding is it going to be chocolate or mint chocolate chip?
That's exactly right.
And when you can do that, now let's also just make this quick caveat here. We don't have a whole lot of time for a million caveats, but this obviously comes, the only way you can present offers is after you've built rapport, after you've listened to them, after you've walked the property, after you've done your homework before you even got there. So don't just walk in the front door and think that you can make an A/B offer and expect it to be accepted. But it's called the assumptive close.
Yeah.
It's a variant of the assumptive close, and it's a way that you can close deals by presenting options that are the options you want.
That's right. And then
my son Reagan does this all the time. He says, Daddy, what day this weekend works best for you to have sushi? Should we go buy sushi on Friday night or Saturday night? I'm thinking Saturday night because of blah, blah, blah. But if Friday night works better for you, Dad, we can do that. Yeah. No one taught him that. No one, explained that to him, but that's what he does.
Well, exactly. All right. So the last part of this close, and the thing that you got to remember is, even though you tell them these are mutually exclusive offers,
Right.
you can't combine them.
Right.
They're going to come back with rebuttals no matter what. And a lot of times it's going to be, hey, let's combine, the cash offer with the finance price and whatever. You got to learn this phrase. I'm not sure how I can do that.
I'm not sure how I can do that.
How can I do that? And let them show you. Right. Look, I see where you're coming from, and I'd love to help you, but I don't know how I can do that.
I'm not sure how to do that.
Right, right.
Here's a great way to practice that in your daily life. When you walk into a store without a mask on, and they say, "Sir, would you like to put a mask on?" Just politely say to them, I'm not sure how I can do that.
That's funny. All right, so let's move on. Let's get into the meat and potatoes here. All right, here's what we got. So we've got, all right, our first, we talked about constructing the AB close. What is it and how does it work and all that stuff. So I'm behind here, Judah. Sorry.
All right.
We're going to cover 5 different ways to make an offer. And you got the cash offer, seller financing, hybrid, list it, and the partnership model. Okay. So let's jump in.
There's also other ways, these we just only have time for these. You can also talk to them about the benefits of wholesaling the property. You can talk to them about the benefits of, taking over payments. You could talk to them about, we're not saying that this is an exhaustive list. We think these are probably the 5 most common ways of doing it. And so that's what we're going to do.
Okay. So the cash offer. Look, I know that right now, a lot of people that are watching this show are going 65% of ARV minus construction. I'll never get an offer accepted. Well, guess what? Maybe you shouldn't be making offers right now. So I want to go into very quickly why the 35% equity rule is so vital, especially if you're using financing. Okay. Purchase costs are going to be about 11%. Believe it or not, that's what they're going to be. You got your transfer taxes, builder's risk policy, title insurance, and financing fees. All that adds up to about 11%.
Yep.
Then you got selling costs. When you sell the property, it's going to be 6%. Now, I'm sorry.
7%.
It's going to cost you about 8% here. What I did was I took the 65% of the ARV and I used that number for our realtor fee.
Right.
So it's a little bit, overall, you got to raise a little bit more or less money, but it works in with the equity. You got your transfer taxes are going to be 1%, and you may have seller's concession. It may just be that, look, they find out that that there's a problem with the well, and there's a piece that has to be replaced, and it's $2,000, and that's going to take you some time to get it done. So you could just sell the thing and give them the $2,000. There's going to be something there, right?
Yep.
You've got your holding costs, utility, property taxes. Bottom line, all that rolled into a ball is going to cost you about 25%. So if you buy it at 75 cents on the dollar minus construction, you get to walk out and make no money. That extra 10%, that 35% equity is a 10% of the ARV profit margin.
Correct.
So look, you can offer whatever you want, but on a cash offer, you should be at 65% minus construction. All right.
And you never explain this to people. Listen, and it's not taking advantage of people, but like I'm working with somebody right now that their house is worth, all fixed up in a beautiful shape, about $275. They think that it's only worth about $220.
Okay.
So like if I was going to make them a cash offer, I would be offering based on $275.
Right.
Not $220, which is what they think it's worth in their mind. So I'm already much closer to giving them 100% of what they want. So you don't have to go educating people on what their house is worth before you make all these offers.
Well, you really do. And I mean, look, you have to be educated when you walk in there, but you don't have to give them all of the knowledge of what's selling in the neighborhood and stuff like that. We're not going to mislead people, but we're just telling them like, look, this is what I can pay. And here's why.
Right.
These are the real expenses. And this also plays in when you're presenting a cash offer. We've gone through the presentation before. We've talked about the costs of selling and buying a house. And like that's something you tell people about. Look, you put this with a realtor, go for it. It's going to cost you 6% right off the top.
Right.
All right. So when this is going to work? Well, when they have a timing motivation and they have to close now, they need the cash right now. When they have lots of equity, and if there is a financial motivation, like they're in foreclosure, like they are behind on bills, like there is something that they need to pay off, these kind of motivations come into play.
Right. Also, if they're kind of like tired of the house, disgusted with the house, want nothing to do with the house, if it's a divorce situation, if it was, if it was their father's house and them and the four siblings just got done fighting about all the other things of the estate, and they just want this house done so that they can sell the estate so they can go back to being friends and siblings instead of fighting about money. Like if there's some angst and animosity associated towards the house, make them a low ball cash offer.
Right. Push the speed.
Yep.
All right. Second option, seller financing. And Judy, you've done a heck of a lot more of this than I have. But I mean, I love the seller finance option.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get it at the right number, and that's what I want to talk about next. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that seller financing is a great deal. So subject to, we're taking over payments, is kind of a subset of seller financing, or you can look at it as its own separate option. That's fine too. But one of the great things about this is you want to be, whenever you're buying these properties, you still want to be picking up equity. Usually because you're still going to have to be doing work. I'm willing to take over payments on a property if there's already financing in place at something like 95% of equity, because I know I'm going to be building equity, because I know it's not going to be on my credit report, and there's things like that. But also if they're doing seller financing, you still want your first offer to be at about with 70. At 70 to 80% loan to value, or 20 to 30% equity in there.
Well, so here's the other thing to consider here. I use the template of a flip.
Right.
You're flipping this property. It's not likely that you're going to be running after seller financing on a flip. That's more of a hybrid type model.
Right.
But if you're doing this for a buy and hold, or like a sandwich lease option situation, getting a seller financing and then lease optioning it to somebody else, you can pay a little bit more because you're buying.
You can be in the 90s if you're looking to, buy and hold this property, but you want to be real careful that you are.
Yeah. Construction has to be zero.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You've got to be at a different spot for that. And you just have to explain to them why and show it to them that, listen, I'm still going to be doing this. So know what you want to do with the property. When I talk to investors who are doing 2 or 3 deals a month, they kind of know, okay, this one I'm going to flip, this one I'm going to hold, this one I'm going to wholesale. So know, and that's part of your knowledge base going into that property. Oh man, this has a lot of work. I don't want to do that. Oh wait, this property is over here. I don't want to hold this. I want to flip it. You know what I mean? Because it's 2 counties away. Whatever the case may be, decide up front what you're likely to do with it. And that's how that works. When this works is it allows you to make them a bigger number.
Yeah.
So you're allowed to offer, you can get away with offering them more. Also, if this has been a property that it has been a cash flowing rental property for them, or they wished it was a cash flowing rental property, whatever the case may be, sometimes offering seller financing is a better way to get that deal done, because you can offer them a little bit more money, and they can also take a break on the transfer, or not the transfer tax, but the capital gains tax. Because you also could present it that, hey, listen, Josh, I'm going to be paying you $80,000 for this property, but I'm also going to be paying you 3% interest, 5% interest, 7% interest. Residential mortgages right now are about 3%. So like private mortgages that you're doing with the seller should only be at 5 or 7%. People don't be paying 10% to people, if you're even paying interest at all. But so there's a number of different ways that you can hype the benefits of seller financing to somebody if they're an investor and they just want to be done with the liability and the headache and the hassle, and they're willing to go. Our friend Gail Patches, who we've had on here on several occasions, she's doing. I talked to her just this weekend. She's doing tons of seller financing deals, and it's kind of like her main way that she goes after things. Like she is just lighting on fire with this.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome, and you know what? I think one of the areas that people miss for seller financing is when you have somebody that's stuck on a number.
Right.
Like our buddy that was on here from Texas, right?
Right.
I mean, he came in and he said, look, I'll pay $1 million for a property, but I'm only paying you $1 a month.
Right.
Well, it's like, what? As long as you're setting the terms,
right,
and the numbers work, then that's great. But make sure you do the numbers.
Right.
All right. So our third option here is the hybrid. And give me one sec. I gotta flip over screens here. Great. So
I'm working on this right now with a listing option or two that I have, because I've got a number of listings, and there's people who are saying to me, listen, what if we come in and my buyer gives your guy, I've got like a $330,000 listing, $350,000 listing, something like that, and comes in and says, hey, what if I give you $100,000 cash right now and then some seller financing for the rest? So there can be some ways that can work, and depending, and again, where that final number is for your costs outlaid into the property just depends on what you're able to pay, and it also depends on what you want to do with the property. Am I looking to buy this and flip it, or am I looking to buy this and hold it? What do I want to do? How does that work? So Josh has an example here. Josh, walk us through an example.
Well, no, yeah, exactly. I think it's really tough to get your head around exactly how much to offer like this, right? I mean, we talk, if it's one way or it's the other way, it's pretty straightforward. If it's cash or seller financing or whatever. But when we're looking at this and you've got a little bit of both, it's tough to kind of blend the two together to figure out what you need to pay. And here's, right. I use this as a quick example. Let's say you have $100,000 or you have a property you can pick up for $100,000. It needs $50,000 in work, not 150, 50,000 in work. And the seller is willing to finance $75,000. In a situation like that, I mean, your calculation looks like this. You take 50%, 75,000 is half of 150, your total project cost, right? And multiply 65% of the ARV minus construction for the cash portion, right? And that represents half of the money you need. And then do right. the same thing for the seller finance portion. Right. And you come up with kind of a hybrid. And I when I ran these numbers through with a straight cash offer, came in at just over $96,000. The hybrid, you're at 103, and I think at the at 71%, it was like, I don't know, 108,000 or something like that for seller financed, right? So you've got these varying, percentages, and like depending on how much they want to make off the deal, maybe this works, maybe it doesn't. And that, I mean, it kind of brings us to our last option, which is going to be the partner with the investor, right. the seller. But I mean, this is one option that you can look for. Sometimes you have to raise $150,000 for a project. Sometimes you can only raise $75,000,
right?
Or $100,000. You got to find the rest somewhere else,
right? So the next thing that we want to talk about is listing the property. And ladies and gentlemen, I mean, I know this is going to sound very self-serving, but you should be telling everybody that you ever do a presentation for, hey, I know this guy, Judah Hoover. He would love to list this house for you. He can probably list it for XYZ. Do you want me to give him a call and just have him listed for you? Why haven't you thought about that? He'll get this property on the market for you and give them an honest number. He'll probably list this house for you tomorrow for $225. Why don't you just want to list it? Yeah. And you almost want to go with that early, because if they say, well, really, we never thought about listing it, or we thought about listing it, but this is what we heard, and blah, 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 blah. You should talk to Judah. Judah might be able to really help you out here. And guys, if I get the listing, great. I can pay for some marketing for you or something like that. But if you want them to tell you, I am dead set against listing this property.
Yeah,
I am absolutely opposed 100% to listing this property. Because then they can't later say, well, maybe I'll just they can't bluff you and be like, well, I don't like any of these offers, so maybe I'm going to list it. The other thing that kind of fits under like a caveat of listing it is if because your due diligence and your rapport, that the most a property would list for or pay cash for or anything like that is like, if that a property would list for 100, right?
Yeah.
And that like you could pay cash at 65. and they owe 99 on it or 97, that's a short sale waiting to happen. If you can't list a house and walk away with 90% of that and pay off the mortgage, it's a short sale waiting to happen. And you need to say, listen, your best bet is actually going to be to talk to Jason Sanseverino, this guy that I work with. He's awesome. Let me get you in contact with him. And here's the benefits of doing a short sale.
Right.
So hey, Josh, I have a question. Yeah. Do you know a good contractor who could come out here and do this work for you, and then you list this property and then you sell it? So when we're talking about listing it, sometimes the best way to get in and out of a transaction is with no risk for yourself, but generating referrals for other people around you who will then want to do business with you. And also, here's the thing. If you present them with all those options and your lowball cash offer, when they accept your lowball cash offer, they don't think, well, Josh took advantage of me. All he did was tell me about the cash offer.
Dude, listen, and I know you've been in this situation before where you're buying something and somebody is selling hard, right? But there we go, Jeremy Bayshore. I love it. There's a bomb sitting in front of both of you, and you both know it's there.
Right.
And either you don't buy because you let the bomb go off, or the salesman does a really smart thing. And he says, why aren't you going with this option? Right? Like, it builds credibility when you bring up the listing option. It also gets rid of that bomb or the elephant in the room or whatever you want to call it that they're going to pull out. And you know when they're going to pull it out? Right when you're ready to close on them.
Right. Here's the other way that I've had deals blow up on me. Let's say I'm trying to buy Josh's property, right? And Josh and I told Josh about who he could list it with, and I told Josh about doing the rehab himself, and I told Josh about how he could stage the property and this and that and the other thing. And Josh is like ready to move forward with me. And then Josh's sister comes in and says, why are you trying to take advantage of my brother? And you're doing blah, 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 blah. Don't you know that his heart's broken because he just went through a divorce and you're just trying to steal this house from him and blah, blah, blah. Whoa, sis, did Josh tell you about the referrals I sent him to? I told him he should list it. Hey, did he talk to you about blah, blah, blah? He told me he doesn't want to list it because of blah, blah, blah. And then the sister says, you know what, that is true. That isn't really a good option or a solution for him. It's not just that person. It's who else could come in and start throwing bombs at the situation too.
Well, and Judah, at the end of the day, it gets rid of that option for them.
Right.
They make the decision to put it to the side, and then you move on, and it keeps the credibility. And frankly, it saves you time because guess what? If they were thinking about listing it anyway, and you didn't bring it up, they're going to bring it up at the end of your presentation. Right. Just say, I guess we're going to have to list the place. And then you just wasted a day. Don't do that. All right. Last but not least is the partnership. This is one that can be super, super effective, but you got to be careful, right?
Well, here's what's great about it. Let's just talk about this. So let's say Josh has a house and he doesn't want to just sell it for cash, but he also knows that the house needs work.
Yep.
One of the things that I can do is I can come to Josh and say, Josh, listen, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fund the rehab myself. You're going to sign a mortgage giving me a loan against the house. And you're also going to sign this listing agreement saying you're going to list the house with such and such an agent for at least this price. And you're also going to sign this agreement that whatever we sell the property above your mortgage and and my hard costs going into it, which I think are going to be X, whatever that spread is, we're going to split that 50-50, 60-40, 80-20, whatever it ends up being. And so what we do, but here's why these work so great is there's only one transaction.
Right.
There's not two sets of closing costs. You don't have the closing costs when you buy and the closing costs when you sell. And so because of that, everybody can actually make more money.
Well, and watch this. Not just that, but your return on the cash that you outlay is humongous.
Right.
So I disagree with you on the structure a little bit.
Well, that's fine. There's a number of ways to start. I'm just explaining how it would go.
No, I think that this is why I wanted to talk about this and spend some time on this, because the structure is going to matter in the long term. And if you're dealing with a straight up seller, you don't even need anything. If you have a construction, if you have a licensed contractor,
right, they can put a mechanics lien on the property
and then lien it, and it takes precedent for the mortgage. But if they never sell the house, you're screwed. You know, like if they never sell the house, I was reading an article about this couple in California. They bought this house with 2 weeks notice. They pulled all of their cash, bought the place in January 31st, 2020. They have not stepped into the house since because of the moratorium on evictions. And because this is brought into it, they're stuck.
Right.
The previous owner. So there are some liabilities that you can run into there. But if you structure it right, you've got a seller that they just want more money. You look at this. If we were going to buy this house cash, we're going to pay $96,250. That's what the number came out to, the all cash offer, right? We're going to give the seller a credit towards the whole cost of the project of that $96,250. We're going to put up $50,000 for construction plus the closing costs or whatever we got to do. It ends up being $53,750, and we split it 35-65.
Right.
Because that's a percentage of the cash that went into it. In a scenario like this, there's $57,000 profit. $20,000 goes to me as the investor. I had $53,000 out. That's a 38% return.
Right, Josh. Let me say this. I get it, buddy. You're going over numbers really quick, and I'm even having trouble following.
I know. I'm sorry.
The bottom line is the reason this works is there's only one set of closing costs. And I mean, how you structure it is different, but there's only one set of closing costs. And you hit on a big thing, Josh. If you buy a property and pay for both the purchase price and the rehab, you're on the hook for a lot more money. Right. Your liability is a lot greater. Whereas if you're just funding the rehab, your liability is a lot smaller. Now, how you protect yourself, whether you want to get a mortgage up front or just trust the mechanics lien, whether you want to have them sign a listing agreement for a specific amount, there's a number of different ways. And we spend a whole bunch of time on that. But a partnership option works because you are beautifying the property. They're feeling like they're not, like they can tell their friends. They don't have to tell their friends that they're splitting the profit 50-50. Right. Or they're only getting 75%.
We're flipping this place.
I got Dad's place. We're flipping it. It's going, and in fact, they really are. It's a great way for everybody to win. And if you know how to do this partnering option and you work with a good realtor, what you're going to do is you're going to beat other people who don't know how to do those deals. Yeah.
Now the big caveat here is the property should be vacant. You got to have it vacant. Otherwise, you're not. Yeah.
When you guys now, what's going on? And obviously, COVID is a difficult situation, and you're only going to be making those options and those offers for certain people in certain times when you know that they're looking to move or they're looking to, or they don't live there or there's other things happening. Yes.
Got it. Beautiful. All right. That's it. That's all I got today.
Great. Guys, this was an amazing show. Really appreciate it. Please be sure to share this show. Please be sure to like it. Share it with your friends on Facebook. That really means a lot to Josh and I. We really appreciate you, our dear listeners. We haven't been saying it enough recently, but we do not take for granted that you guys show up and listen to us talk for half an hour, and we really, really appreciate it. If Josh can do anything for you, his contact information is right over there, and this is my contact information right here. So give me a call if there's ever anything that we can do for you in the real estate world or the lending world. We're here for you.
Awesome. All right, guys, have a great day. Go make some money. We'll be back here on Thursday, and we may have a bonus episode for a walkthrough of this project we've been going through.
Very excited.
We'll see. All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon. Have a good one.